And we are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Forever Rugby on Forever Sports. It has been just over 24 hours since Wales dramatically beat the Springboks yesterday after a late try by Josh Adams was converted brilliantly by Gareth Anscombe. And I think, regardless of the performance, big hats off to Gareth Anscombe because that was one of the most clutch, one of the top moments I've seen from a place kicker ever. In terms of, I mean, it does not. If you had to put a kick in one of the hardest places in the field, that is probably one of the two hardest places. The only harder place for me would have been if it was on the other side because he's a right-footed kicker. So that was the only thing he had going for him, is the fact that it was left to right, so he could try and curl it, but it was literally on the touchline. And to be able to slot that with ease, basically, in that sort of pressure moment, was pretty unbelievable. So, I mean, quite apart from anything else, you can't even be mad when you lose something like that because you have to sit there and say, you know what, fair play. But tonight we're going to be talking about the Springbok coaches, and we're talking about the Springbok selection. We're going to be talking about what we can expect during the week in terms of our shows, in terms of the content we're going to bring out, as well as what we can expect to see from the Springboks ahead of what will be a series-defining match in Cape Town on Saturday at the Cape Town Stadium. So we're gonna get a poll together. Aren't we? And it's going to be, should Jacques Nienaber be sacked? Yes or no? And I'm interested to see how this is going to go. And I think there's a lot going on in terms of the reaction to yesterday, and I think that a lot to talk about. And I'm quite interested to sort of get quite a range of views on this because I think that Twitter can be quite polarizing, and there's a lot of stuff being thrown around, a lot of stuff that's some of it's valid, some of it's not valid, and kind of usually with the case is that you'll have the two sets of extreme fans, and for me, I always like to sort of find myself in the middle and trying to be a bit more balanced about things and try and sort of just take a little bit of a step back every now and again, take emotion out of it, and really sort of gauge exactly what we're looking at. But yeah, so go voting on the poll, and I'm enjoying the direction it's taking. And there's a lot to talk about in terms of the future of the Springbok coaching staff, because there's a lot of factors that will go into any decision. And let me be very frank right now and say that Jacques Nienaber and his coaching staff are absolutely 100% safe in their jobs at the moment. As is Eddie Jones, as is, I think, pretty much every international coach at the moment. I don't think there are any international coaches out there that are actually going to probably look to be potentially fired before the World Cup. It's too late. It's too late, guys. Even if people, I mean, Ian Foster's probably the coach under the most pressure. Are they going to sack him now? I don't think so, because, you'd have to get to the Rugby Championship. Well, he'll get the Rugby Championship, and then after that, if you were to sack him, you're then looking at a new coach having 9 matches to put together an All Black side that can win a World Cup. So we are looking at it being way, way, way too late to be thinking about this kind of concept. So the next thing we're going to be talking about is this sort of conversation even justified? And a lot of people are saying it is. And I was having quite a lot of goes at people last night on Twitter. I was jumping around and telling people what's what and what. But let me know who's in the comments. I'm seeing a couple of people putting in their selection for the team and stuff like that. Tevin Berg says, anyone who believes the proposition title desperately needs to find 2 brain cells to wrap together. Mark Dunphy says, Bok's very poor. So MC says, we don't need to sack the coach. We need to add to the coaching a good backline attacking coach. Kiwi saying similar things, saying Springboks need an attack coach ASAP. Oliver says, if you think we should sack him, there's no hope for you. Sorry, I'm not looking forward to this weekend. My spirit is dampened. I'm very much looking forward to this weekend. I think that I've been excited for the Bok game in a long time like this because there's so much on the line. Pretty much, this has been the most excited I've been since, probably the British and Irish Lions decided in terms of there being something on the line. Maybe to a certain degree, the 2 All Blacks games last year. The Fiddler of the Foreskin says it's pretty obvious that the Boks are lacking in attack. And Funikosi says, no, only after the World Cup will assess. Mr. Obo, there's a couple of these shows lately. Keep up the content, have a beer on me. Thank you very much. I will have several beers on you, so thank you very much. That I really do appreciate that. The nice thing is pounds do go quite far here, so I can get more than a single beer on that. So I really do appreciate the super chat. And just to everybody else, thank you very much for the last week. We've had a lot of super chats coming in. We've had a lot of members. We've taken a massive step forward as a channel in the last 2-3 weeks, and I'm really excited for the future, because this is the last time that I would like to be sitting in Johannesburg while the Boks are in Cape Town for the week. We want to get down to the ground. We want to get on the ground with the team. We want to be taking you guys behind the scenes. And, you know, the types of views, the super chats, all the stuff, and the member stuff like that, all these things are steps towards us being able to do that. So, a massive thank you to everybody off the bat for all the support over the last week. Jan says, if we lose the third test, I'll be sad, but glad at the same time, not because we lose if it happens, but because there'll be no way to ignore the fact we need a new coach. So Johan, I think from the sounds of it, is going very much the coaches need to be out. Gareth is saying it's early days. Nobody needs a fair chance head coach. Oliver says plenty of work to be done on attack, but the bones are there. We can build a truly phenomenal team. Some of the other comments, David was saying here, boxing attack coach, kicking coach, or temporary consultants. Just going to pick out a couple here. Craig Morgan says 69% win rate. That's an ace rate to have. I'm not sure what you're referring to. Yeah, where was he? Ian Foster with 69% winning record with the All Blacks is criminal. And Zach says, I think Hendricks has proven more than Faf in my opinion. And Tim Vandenberg says, very impressed with Orense, Hendricks, Ori, and Norkia on the weekend. Probably up there with Lowe as debutants. I was most impressed with as well. Not Marvin Ori, because he has played before. But yeah, should we get stuck into it, shall we? And this is where I kind of sit. Yeah, oh, there we go. Near debutants and Nori and Hendricks' case. Let's backtrack, shall we? Let's backtrack to the World Cup. Ironically, it's actually the two people who were part of the World Cup winning coaching staff that actually seem to be most under pressure, because, and a lot of it's come to people's ignorance, because I saw, obviously, Jacques Nienaber being the head coach is taking a lot of flack at the moment after the loss. And I've seen people, weirdly enough, going after Zondile Stick once again. Zondile Stick is still remains a World Cup winning assistant coach. Full disclosure, people, Zondile Stick is not the backline coach. I don't know if people just don't know that. He is not the backline coach. It is not Zondile Stick backline coach. So, if you have an issue with the backline, you know, he's not in charge of the backline. Whether he does have a lot to do with the backline or not, that is not officially his role. His role is off-the-ball coach. Now, what that means is that, I mean, it's quite self-explanatory. His role is basically what the Springboks are doing when they don't have ball in hand, and that concludes on the attack and defense. So he looks at you know, the more sort of the structure and stuff like that, and how they fall into play. So, for example, if Jacques Nienaber has a defensive system, because obviously as a former defense coach, you think that he's bringing up the defense stuff. You know, Zondile Stick's sort of role is basically the movement, the work rate, the structures, how people are getting in place, stuff like that. He sort of will work hand in hand with, in terms of the structural point of view, as to where players will go, what they have to do, what the work rate is, what their roles are off the ball. You know, sort of and which is quite an important thing, because I think, you know, obviously when we watch rugby, we're only watching where the ball is, but so much in defense as well as attack is where everybody else is. You know, during the build-up, you know, people finding space, people, you know, defensively getting into the right place and stuff like that. So, yeah, in theory, the attack coach in inverted commas is actually Felix Jones. You know, who I don't know if he's actually literally he's been put down as assistant coach. I don't know if he's actually officially been given the attack coach, but he was brought in at the departure of Swayze to Brain. So the assumption is the fact that he is sort of taking that sort of role. But yeah, there isn't a backline coach. The Springboks do not have a backline coach. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, you can sort of leave it as of today. But if you're going to criticize people, let's be fair to what you criticize. It's like criticizing Don Human for the backline. You know, Dion Davis works with the forwards. Don Human is the scrum consultant. He replaced Matt Falk was doing a lot of that. So Dion Davis sort of does a lot of the forwards work, and with Don Human, who does the scrum work. And one imagines Ondila Stick and Felix Jones between them will work more with the backline players as former backline players themselves. Jacques is very much defense orientated. That was where his sort of background comes in. So yeah, you know, we don't. It's if you're going to go after people in the right way. And I also think that it's too easy to just go and say we've got a bad attack, therefore our attack coach is bad. You know, there's so much more to it. You know, your defensive system and the way you then transition to an attack, for example, is a small area but a very important area. You know, sometimes it's all about, you know, how you plan on using the space and stuff like that. Your kicking game, you know, is there a kicking coach, for example? Is your kicking coach just a case of is he working on place kicking? Is he working on tactical kicking? There's so many different things. We've got no idea how the dynamic actually works within the training. So I think for me, I find it very pointless to go after a specific member of the coaching staff to say that you're not doing your job. I mean, it's probably a bit easier to, like, if, for example, our scrums were a mess, it's easier to go to Don Human and say, what are you doing? Because he's the scrum consultant. That's his like baby. But it's so much more than that. But let's just be a bit more informed when we go after people. Pokemon Boy says we are building for 2023. Yeah, we lost, but we'll be moving forward even stronger. Brent says, how do people propose we change coach almost 12 months before the Rugby World Cup? And you're asking the right questions, aren't you? Why was Saturday's pitch so green? Damn, man, it's Free State. I wanted to see a dry and brown pitch for fast and running rugby, or do we pair pitch for Wales? This is Africa. We've just had so much rain this year. I mean, we saw the Currie Cup final in Kimberley, and it looked like they were playing in bloody Durban. So, yeah. I think the big thing is at the moment, and also something that I feel quite strongly about. Rassie Erasmus is still involved in this team. He is the director of rugby. He is currently banned from being involved in match day activities, which means that he can't be in the stadium and he can't phone in, for example, and he can't be there on the day. You know, as far as I understand, it also extends to he can't be at training sessions, but if you don't think Rassie Erasmus has having any say or any input into team selection, team tactics, and the long-term plan, you're dumb. Unfortunately. Sounds harsh, doesn't it? But it's the reality. Rassie Erasmus is still very involved in this side. So, if you're going after Jacques Nienaber, if you're going after Zandile Stick, if you're going after Deon Davids, if you're going after Felix Jones, if you're going after Deon Davids, you are also going after Rassie Erasmus. We need to get away from, as soon as everything bad happens, it's Jacques' fault, or it's Wanzila's fault, or it's Deon's fault. And then as soon as something good happens, it's Coach Rassie. Like, no. You know, every criticism that we level towards the BOK coaching staff has to include Rassie. Every praise that we give to the BOK coaching staff has to include Jacques, has to include Zondila Stick, has to include Deon Davids. You know, and I'm getting quite bored of this concept of bring Rassie back because he's already involved. He hasn't gone anywhere. He's banned from being matchday activities, but in the coming World Cup, he will probably be in the coaching box. If not on the side of the field, but probably be in the coaching box. You know, as director of rugby, he's still very much involved. Yes, he's, you know, during the off-season, he's probably sitting a lot more sort of in terms of structural point of view and stuff like that. But if you guys think that he's not having input into this side, then you don't understand the relationship they have. Jacques Nienaber and Rassie Erasmus have worked very close together for a long time. I mean, somebody said yesterday that Rassie appointed Jacques because he's his friend. Why are we acting like Jacques Nienaber did not come in and make us the most defensively solid side in the world? You know, there was that stupid stat before last year about how the fact that we had, like, the amount of tries we conceded, we were averaging one try conceded every 2 games, something stupid. And to be fair, we won the World Cup with our defense because we did not concede points. We did not concede tries. We did not win the World Cup with this razzle-dazzle, throw the ball around rugby style. And we did not win the British and Irish Lions series with this razzle-dazzle around it. We won it because we are defensively unbelievable. We are a wall in defense. And so much of that has come down to Jacques Nienaber's input. So to ever suggest that he doesn't deserve to be there, or that it was a case of Rassie selecting his friend, is also very far from the truth, because we're talking about a Springbok assistant coach who won the World Cup and has now taken the next step. And yes, he doesn't have head coach credentials in the past, so it is a bit odd, but there's a system in place, and I think that's the important thing. You've got to back the entire system. It's far too easy to single out individual people. So it's a case, and that's it. I think there can always be an argument to bring somebody else in. I do think that we misraced the brain to a certain degree. I do think that we have, lost a little bit of our attacking edge, and maybe it's a case of looking at bringing somebody in. But it's as I said, then that's a different conversation to saying people don't deserve their jobs or people need to be sacked or whatever. And another big shock and horror revelation that I'm going to tell a lot of people, and I'm hoping that you guys are going to be quite open to this concept. We will lose test matches. Let me say it again, very, very slowly, because some people might not realize this. We will lose test matches. I have not seen the World Rugby climate and teams being so balanced in a very long time. When last did we sit there saying, so France, so tomorrow when the world rankings are released, France will be number 1. And they are the form side at the moment. There's no doubt about that. They lost a series against Australia a year ago, but since then they've played some very good rugby, and they had a grand slam. So they're number 1 team in the world. They're currently playing against Japan. Japan have actually played very well against them. Ireland have beaten New Zealand twice in the last 12 months. We have beaten New Zealand. Australia have beaten us. England have beaten us. We have beaten the British and Irish Lions. We have beaten Scotland. We have beaten Wales. Wales have beaten us. Australia have beaten England. England have beaten Australia. Scotland have beaten Argentina. Argentina have beaten Scotland. World Rugby at the moment, I think, is so set for what could be one of the best World Cups ever next year, because I don't think there is this massive gap anymore between the top side and the 5th, 6th, 7th side. Wales are currently ranked 9th in the world rankings, and they beat us. And I mean, I think 9th is probably pretty misleading when it comes to this Welsh side, because they are a decent side on paper, who are going through a really poor run of form at the moment. But I think Ireland are a great side when they pitch up. The All Blacks will still have their days. Australia's a side on the rise. England are a side who are very inconsistent, but can put in a very good performance. France are red hot at the moment, and the Boks have not forgotten how to play rugby. They will be very competitive in the Rugby Championship. In fact, we are still probably going to go into the Rugby Championship as the favourites, given the fact that New Zealand have been so poor of late, and the fact that they had to play 2 games in South Africa. So I think it's quite exciting. And I think that, we have lost our number 1 ranking for the first time since the post-World Cup. We're sitting 3 years afterwards. So I'm not too phased about that, to be perfectly honest. And I think it's quite cool. France only go to the World Cup number 1 in rankings for the first time ever, a year before the World Cup. How exciting is that as a backstory? Ireland, who are notorious for peaking too early, are going up to number 2. Are they peaking too early again? Or will they finally get past the quarterfinal next year? I think World Rugby is actually in a very exciting place in terms of there's not a lot of difference between some of the top sides and the bottom sides, and that makes it exciting. You don't want to be going to a World Cup where the games only start becoming relevant at semi-final time. I want to be interested from the group stages. I want to be interested in those quarterfinals. I want a quarterfinal with Wales versus, I don't know, Ireland being like, what's going to happen here? And I think what we are seeing is the frustration and the fact that the draw was done so early that we're going to see possibly the top 3 sides in the world in the same side of the draw, which is very frustrating. But I think World Rugby, by the way, I mean rugby in the world as opposed to the organization, which is a disaster. I'm saying the rugby climate at the moment, I think, is probably in the best sort of condition that we've seen in a long time. Janae Clayton says, what are we saying? It's one-dimensional. The players are following certain structure and plays. Johan says, Rusty is still involved, but he's not the head coach anymore, 100%. Washington, 2018, Box lose to Wales, but kept 7 new players, among them Pimpy and Oxen Chair. 18 months later, he won the World Cup. Box fans treating this like Armageddon and Xanax. And I think that PSF Tatoya, for example, was somebody that, I think it was Jared Wright, who was putting on Twitter today that PSF Tatoya is somebody that Rusty Rasmus said he would never pick in a side, and he became World Rugby Player of the Year. So, you know, calm down. So Gareth Ferguson says we also lost to Italy. Yeah, things could be worse, people. Not sure why people are calling for his head. Many Welsh fans were calling for Wayne Pivac's head. All knee-jerk, SAR rock-style team. That's from a Welshman, 100%. Again, you know, I thought that Wayne Pivac... Yeah, I could see what he's trying to do, to be fair to him. I think they had a terrible Six Nations. Look, I'm a bit biased because I find him very likable when I go to the press conferences and stuff like that. But JB says, I don't think he should be fired, but want to see this new agenda attack we've been promised the last few years. Can't still use lack of game time as an excuse like in the Lions test. Neil Buss doesn't have head coach experience till now. You can't start your head coach experience on this level. Tell you what he does have, a British and Irish Lions series to his name as its credentials, so maybe you can. The first 4 tests he was in charge of as head coach, 3 of them were British and Irish Lions test. He won 2 of them. And again, if you're gonna slag him off for losing against Wales, you have to give him that British and Irish Lions series. He's also beaten New Zealand already. So his rugby CV doesn't, as head coach, doesn't exactly look terrible. Tadiwa Nasha says, when you are busy winning at the top, especially in sport, you should prepare to lose. The one thing I can guarantee you, at least make the loss count for something. Trust the process, 100%. Etienne says, well, we did really good, though. It's with our B team versus Wales. Angela says, not at all. Quite says, I just think we are overlooking things. We have always struggled against the Welsh. All our victories have been by single digits. Also a very good point. Skulkberger must come to Springboks again. Key Buckley says, for us, not all of that. CPO Ring says, we can't afford to lose these type of matches. The great New Zealand teams went years without losing. You know what? We've got 3 World Cups. They've got 3 World Cups. So we've got a British and Irish Lions series. They don't. So, as I said, if this is a means to an end, I don't mind. You know. Dalton says, people beg the coach for a young, informed squad, then crucify him when they don't win and showing spirits in the final moments. Pretty logical. I actually tweeted that earlier. I said that everybody wants to see a young and experimental team until you lose. And it's 100% true. A week ago, we went live for the Bok announcement, and everybody was like, such a hectic team, so excited. Ruiz is in, Marcel Garcia's back. We're going to see Kirkley Orense, Apel Fast getting an opportunity. Andre Estesen on the back of the Premiership. This is going to be so cool. You know, we're going to see debutants in the likes of Grant Williams. You know, we're going to see Dion Free make his debut at 35 years old. And everybody was so excited about the game. And it was like, and a lot of people say, you know, even if we lose, you know, this is going to be really cool. It's going to be a big learning curve. And then what happens? We lose. And what then happens? Everybody freaks out. We can't lose to Wales. No team should be losing to Wales. Yada, 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 yada. You can't have it both ways, people. This coaching staff has been heavily criticized over the last 18 months for not rotating, for not bringing in the younger generation. Should they have put them all out in one game? I don't know. You know, some people sit there saying, you know, they should be integrated. Some people are saying sink or swim. It's international rugby. Let's see if you're ready. And to be fair, Kirkley Orense on Saturday, I think, put his hand up and said, I was a fringe player in the squad. People didn't expect me to be called up. Guess what? I probably looked one of the best in the series so far. And he stood up. Marcel Coetzee, for example, didn't have the best of games. So, you know, he didn't manage to sort of replicate the URC form in a box shirt. You know, I think Evan Lewis was solid, but was definitely not the Springbok Evan Lewis. I mean, the Thomas Evan Lewis, and that was going to be inevitable. So, again, just when in doubt, we need to take a step back, and we just need to be a bit calm and a bit reasonable about things, because we wanted to see new players. We saw them. They almost got the job done, to be fair. They almost got the job done. They were one penalty away or a few minutes away from getting the job done. So, you know, I think it's pretty solid. And what Jock Nearby said afterwards, and he said 2 things, but I think he was very right. And first, he said there was no guarantee the first team would win. And I 100% agree with that because a week ago, they had to kick a penalty after the hooter to win the game. Our first team, the Block A team, came very close to losing. And he said we got answers on players. And I love that answer because that's exactly, you did get answers on players. So, for example, and it's very harsh, but Saturday, for example, showed that maybe Upper Fantasy isn't quite ready for this level yet. You know, he had a very good game last year against Georgia. And a reasonable game against Argentina. But Saturday, he really struggled. And that has to be in the back of your mind. You know, as I said, Kirtley Aronson showed that he was very much ready for this level. You know, I think that Warwick Lunt was frustrating on Saturday. And it's quite interesting because he's been quite a polarizing figure. Because some people have said that he actually he played quite well, but people didn't really support him. Other people said that he had a shocker. I think that he was trying to overdo it at times. And I do think that he's someone who needs to play with other people around him quite a lot to form an understanding. Because I think he's quite different in the way he plays. But I don't think he had his best games. But I thought Evan Roos looked pretty at home. It wasn't phenomenal, but, you know, it wasn't bad. Looked pretty comfortable. And isn't that the main thing, you know, to be able to sort of see which players are ready? You know, for example, Albert Lowe last weekend looked completely at home in a Bok jersey. Jaden Henderson this weekend, people are arguing maybe he should be starting ahead of Faf de Klerk on the back of performance. So you can get a lot of answers about people, and I think that's what the main thing was. So I obviously don't want to lose. Nobody wants to lose. And, you know, this whole, we should never be losing to Wales. I don't like that. I think that's where this whole common thing that Block fans are arrogant. When people start saying you should never be losing a game against Wales. And I hate that about lots of teams because it's never, we should never be losing a game against this Welsh team. We shouldn't be losing against Wales. Wales, over the last 4 years, have won the Six Nations twice, just by the way. A lot of these players are Six Nations winners. A lot of these players are British and Irish Lions players. It's not a bad side at all. And I don't like that whole we should never be losing to Wales. It's like when people had a meltdown on Italy beating Wales. Tell you right now, Italy in 3 or 4 years' time are going to be a very different side. There's a project there which is actually quite exciting. France are going to be number 1 in the world for the first time ever. Now, based on that, that's like saying, well, you know, before this week, you know, you shouldn't be losing France. You know, they've never even been a number 1 team in the world. You know, it's like saying a team hasn't won a World Cup, therefore you shouldn't be losing to them. Is that really where you're going to be? Whereas, you know, there are generations which happen. Sometimes we'll be an incredibly strong Welsh side. Sometimes it'll be a really poor Scottish side. Sometimes it'll be a very average New Zealand side. Like I think at the moment they're a bit average. And sometimes you're going to have average box sides. But this is not an average box side. I think this is a side that's going to get better and better this year. I thought we did see moments on Saturday where we did try and keep the ball at hand a bit more. And I mean that we had a passage to play in the opening period where we did keep the ball. We went through about 10, 11 phases and we sat there going, hello, we can do this. And we didn't see enough of that, but we did see some of it. And I think we have, on Saturday, for example, we definitely saw a lot more ball in hand than we did a week ago. And again, you know, as much as we all want to play champagne rugby, if we played champagne rugby and we got drilled by 20 points, would you still want to see it? At international level, you cannot play rugby that doesn't suit your setup. If you've got a plan, you got to stick to your plan. If it's an effective plan, you know, then fantastic. So people sat there berating the Boks for years. Boring rugby, crap rugby, best physical, World Cup, British and Irish Lions series, and Rugby Championship in 2 years. All 3. They had a clean sweep at one stage. They had all 3 in the trophy cabinet at one stage. So it works. And in international rugby, that's what it's about. You know, at junior levels or at franchise levels, you know, you can try and create a really nice brand and hopefully it works, hopefully it doesn't. The Lions played gorgeous rugby for 3 years, 4 years, never won a trophy, unfortunately. The Bulls didn't play the best of rugby in 2010. It wasn't bad rugby, but it was typical Bulls rugby, which was very tactical, very physical, very forward-driven. And they won a Super Rugby. Which would you rather have? Probably a Super Rugby. So, again, you know, at what cost? You want us to run the ball, you want us to be creative, you want us to be expansive, but at what cost? Are you willing to concede more points by playing a more open brand of rugby? And that doesn't mean that I'm saying that we should never ever run the ball. We should, and we do need to improve. But again, we can't just we're not going to become a France overnight. We're not going to become, for example, Ireland on Saturday, which had incredibly slick handling, really good off the ball, and running off 9. Very nice handling, stick handling. We had some fantastic lines being run. I mean, Tyke Byrne, an absolute stormer on Saturday, but that doesn't happen overnight. And we need to be very careful about whether we commit to go into a more attacking brand of rugby. What do we have to sacrifice? And if it is sacrificing results, but we believe in the future, then that's fine. But if we suddenly then go and lose a World Cup because of it, the South African public are not going to sit there going, but you know what, we try to play nice rugby. They're not, unfortunately. Jan says, again, Bar took over from a World Cup winning team. Obviously, his first few matches in charge have been successful. Now he's getting worse. No, Ninaba was in the World Cup winning team. And again, Johan Ackerman is still involved. It's still the same coaching staff. The only people who are new are Deon Davids and Don Human. It's the same coaching staff, chaps. Hanger says, and they lost by 1 point against a team of first-year international players. The Luke Experience is about to put together a 6-team wait and see. 0 is easy to fire Jacques. As a matter of fact, I find the title of the show clickbait. No. Sorry, did this title say Stevie P. Steven says sack the coaches? It's a question to respond on Twitter, and people really need to understand what clickbait is, to be honest, because that's the problem with SAF, because we don't actually know what it is. And welcome to Journalism 101. I don't think they should sack the coaching staff, but I think it'll be an interesting discussion. Therefore, we should all discuss it on YouTube. That unfortunately does exceeds the character limit, chaps. David says, if you're really being frank, Oren says ahead of Mapimpi right now. He's been looking out of form all season. JP says, in fairness, Ruiz looked as good as Visa minus penalties, and I imagine he has a high ceiling of Visa. I reckon he should be back for future tests pronto, if not this week. I disagree. I think that Visa played a lot better than Evan Ruiz did this past weekend. So I would be putting Jasper Visa right back into the side this week. Nice says, what's the pain here? Losing a game or losing to Wales? It's a very good question. Musbar says, even SBS not being great to 2 tests. Dalton says, in America we have a phrase that applies perfectly: no risk and no risk it, no biscuit. Need to take charge of life, or we risk being like the 2007 box. S-Box says, ironically, Wales didn't know what to expect, neither did I. To our surprise, the game plan was non-existent. Cameron says, the coach that absolutely deserves to be sacked is Foster. He's definitely under the most pressure. Italy lost to Georgia today. Oh, there we go. I'm actually quite excited to see what Georgia's going to do in the next couple of years. It's a very big rugby program. I mean, they absolutely hammered the Scotland under-20s last year. Dabu says, I went under at 12 next game. Wasn't great, but need more game time. The cringe form should translate. Peter says, Curtly was amazing. Can't disagree with Stephen. Winning is winning. Doesn't matter if you win by playing fancy running rugby or not. Winning is winning. Who won last year, the Rugby Championship? New Zealand did. Springboks kicked as much as Ireland did. We ran a lot, but didn't execute well. Yeah, look, I mean, as I said, don't kid yourself. Ireland do kick the ball. All international teams kick the ball. I think Willems so. Gladwin says, think Willems is overrated. Is he really that good? Yes. Watch the season. Watch last week's game. And you can decide. David said, I would have loved midweek SAA games versus Ireland A. French A would have helped blood pressure and helped combinations. Box will get better with more games. Well, that's what we're going to have at the end of the year. And that's why I'm so excited for at the end of the year, because we are going to be playing 7 matches in a month. This 43-man squad are going to be playing 7 matches in a month. 3 midweek games at this rate. Which is going to be really, really cool. And we will have more time to see combination stuff like that. And this is exactly what we've been waiting to see. So they couldn't pull it off for this time, but we're going to see it at the end of the year, and I'm excited for that. So I think it's we're in for a very interesting couple of months ahead. Evan will be having his 100 tests selected this Saturday. 100, yeah, he will. If anything, at least we've kept these players now so they can't play for another country, and a better coach can inherit these talents in the future. Yeah, I mean, Nick Mad was having a little bit a whole thing about that. To be honest, I don't think anybody in the Springbok squad right now was at risk of going overseas. I mean, people kept talking about, Evan Lewis can play for France because he's not going to be called up for the box squad after his first season. It's his first breakthrough season. And because he wasn't playing for the box, he is playing for the box, but because he wasn't called up for a bloody alignment cap, everyone was having a meltdown about the fact he's going to go play for France. He signed a deal with Stormers for like 5 years. So I understand their thinking, but I don't think anybody in this box squad are at risk of doing that. Players like Tyron Green, Ruben Ackerman, who are already overseas, there could be option. There could be a case you made for those sort of players potentially playing for England. But I don't think that Evan Lewis was thinking about playing for England at this stage. I don't think that Nkunu was thinking about going overseas and playing for another another international side. I don't think that your Curly Orange and stuff were thinking about that. So I get the concept, but I don't think we needed to worry too much about the players in the current squad. Terry G says you'd like to see Pollard 10, Damien 12. Joe said it'd be so funny if Wales won next week after all you changed for second test. I can't wait, but I do think you'll win next week, especially with the fresh rested 15 versus tied Wales side. Glavin says, what do you think of Nkunu's debut? Will he make it for Rugby World Cup? He had a very short stint. What I do disagree with is everybody blaming him for the loss because he gave away a scrum penalty and they scored after that. I think that's the dumbest, most lazy piece of analysis you could ever give. So because he was responsible for the final penalty before they scored a try, therefore he's the reason we lost. Doesn't matter that Peter Toy put us 3-0 behind in the first minute. Because of the first minute, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter that Evan Etzebeth had back-to-back penalties that they then got 3 points off. Considering they lost by 1 point, by the way. So if all these incidents hadn't happened, we would have won. So I just think it's so lazy for people who are, and a lot of people are saying, to put the blame on a 22-year-old prop who conceded a scrum penalty. It happens. We will concede penalties. It's not ideal, but it's not like they ran through him. He missed a massive tackle and therefore they scored. He conceded a penalty. They went to the line. They went through several phases. They swung it out wide. They beat us. So they had to do a hell of a lot after that final penalty to score. Not Everyday Calder says, Kalant had a good game. Don't understand everyone's complaints. Michael says, doesn't matter what international side you play. When awarded a penalty, take the bloody 3 points. This was proven again this weekend. The Box should have won that game. Ori and Farid really surprised with the performance. What's your opinion? I think Ori is, you get exactly what you expect from Ori. I think that he's a very solid player. He does all the basics very well. He's not going to do on a stormy run. He's not going to bash over people. He's not going to be a very flair lock. But if you want someone who's very good at lineouts, he will make his tackles, he will carry it up if he needs to. You've got Marvin Ori in that. So, is he X factor? No. Is he in our base 4 locks? No. Is he a safe selection? Yes, because he'll do the job. Stanley says, quietly confident our attack needs work, but some of our young guys can stand up, which is good. Mathic says, all these base supports and analysts saying it's the end of the world. Obviously, haven't been around long enough. Oliver says, one loss to Wales does not make us mediocre side. Peter says, 2023 Rugby World final will be France versus New Zealand. Kitla Kutle says, box coach needs to pick players who can play the coach's game plan. Point is having deadly runners in backline, and then you'll kick possession away for 17 minutes of the game. Peter says Nkunu changed his angle. Box played well. Lack of execution and putting the final nail on the coffin is what lost us the game, says Miles. Yeah, so after the rambling and stuff like that, as you'll gauge, I think that any suggestions that we should be looking at changing the coaching staff are pretty brain dead. I don't think they're particularly justified, to be perfectly honest. This team has been pretty up and down in the last year. But when it's really counted, they've got the job done. Did they beat New Zealand last year? Yes. Did they beat the British Irish Lions and win the series? Yes. Did we also lose to England? Yes. Have we beaten Wales twice and lost once? Yes. Have we beaten Scotland? Yes. Did we beat Georgia? Yes. Did we beat Argentina? Yes. Did we beat Australia? No. So ironically, the only nation that there's 2 nations that Jacques Neval hasn't beaten as head coach in Australia and England. But his win rate currently sits at I think it's going to be about 62%, which is not phenomenal, but not terrible either. And I think that the important thing is that, as I said, when it's really counted, we've gotten the job done. We lost to New Zealand on the back of losing twice to Australia, and everybody freaked out, and we went to beat New Zealand. In New Zealand. And everybody was like, oh, okay, we can do this. When we beat England, and we beat Scotland, and we were like, oh, yeah, we're back. And then we lost to England. It was a good English side. It was a very good England performance as well. And then we have a meltdown. So, we just... And I think a lot of it's symptomatic of what's going on in the world. And the fact that we've got no power in this country. Petrol prices are killing everybody around the world. People are at war. Prime Minister being sacked. It's a bit of a disaster. Nick Kyrgios is in Wimbledon finals. It's all been tough. You know, Man United are being shit. Ferrari can't keep a Formula One car going. But apart from that, you know, and as I said, that's why I think that some people are very reactionary, and you know, a lot of it stems from other issues. But I think we just need to calm down. We are 160 minutes into the 2022 Springbok season. So to freak out about where the Boks are after 160 minutes of Springbok rugby is really pointless. So I like to think that my request rather is to the 200 people that are watching, get a nice early night. It's 9 o'clock. Let's go to bed after this. Wake up tomorrow. Go to work. We'll be live tomorrow at lunchtime show. And let's bring some positive vibes. Let's put this loss behind us. Take it on the chin. Congratulations, Wales. And I'm actually to a small part of me is quite happy that Wales got a win, because I really like this Welsh squad. Like, in terms of the people there, you know, I've been around some of them in the press conferences. We've seen the way they've carried themselves, the way they've spoken about South Africa, the way they've spoken about the Springboks, the way they've spoken about South African people. These guys, I think, have very much won over the South African public. Every single interaction I've had, they've just said that the country is phenomenal, that the people are phenomenal. I mean, Dan Bigger called Loftus one of the best places he's ever played. On Saturday, he said that he's hoping with enough Newcastle Lights to be able to heal his injury. You know, Wayne Pivac said that the reason they stayed in Johannesburg is because they were blown away by the facilities that he had on access and stuff like that. So we've had during such a dark time in our country, we've had a side come here and just tell us how cool we are. So in many ways, you know, how cool is it for them to be able to have a victory like that? And obviously, we're going to put them away this weekend and put them back in their place. But as people and as a rugby team, I've really appreciated how they've gone about it. You know, every single time they've really talked up the Springboks, and they've said that they're a class outfit. You know, even when they made the changes, you know, they were saying that they're still really good players and it's still expecting a big challenge. So, yeah, I've gained a lot of respect for the Welsh during this tour, and I think I've really enjoyed seeing a tour. You know, people who are not just in a Bible, but you know, they're playing golf in South Africa. They're going and doing things, you know, and they're experiencing the South African hospitality, because we've got so much to give, and they really seem to appreciate that. So, yeah, I think it's been quite cool to actually have a genuine tour back here, and I think that next year, whoever does tour down here, will hopefully be an awesome experience as well. Terry G says the coach should recruit some international property to evolve gameplay. Jay got Eddie in for 2007. Yeah, I still know you'd get. Miles Lisa, I absolutely agree. We've won the big games, and we forget that as best team in the world, we have a target on our back. Once you're at the top, the only place you can go is down, and we are going to go down. Peter May says, I was saddened by the lack of vision. Wales read our attack to a key. Thus, no tries. I have been concerned. And Peter says, Este has an absolutely ineffective, huge gap between him and De Lendi. Miles Lisa says, love Welsh conduct. They've been excellent. Quas says, Welsh people are amazing. I was at the Millennium Stadium last year. Yo, that's a bucket list thing for me. W says, Rusty, Coetzee, and Mayo all lost to Wales. If we finish rock bottom in Rugby Championship, then by all means criticize coach. Stadwell says, hope there was a small change to the playing team for the weekend with great options going forward. Spoiler alert, we are going to see a very, very, very strong team this weekend. Expect to see all the big names. So the team that I think we're going to start seeing, I think we're going to see... I don't know who's going to play at Loosehead. I think that's my big question mark over Loosehead. But I think I probably think we're going to see Ox, Bongi, France Maherba, probably Eben and Alert again. The loose trio is interesting because we'll have Sia and we're going to have Jasper Visa, I think. The question is, are we going to go PSF Toy at 7 or are we going to have Moster at 7? Moster did not play particularly well last weekend. However, PSF the Toy probably had one of his worst games in a block jersey in a long time on Saturday as well. And we do have to have a line option. Before anybody sits there saying Kwaka at 7, we have to have a line option in that loose trio. So, for example, if Dwayne was playing at 8, then Kwaka could play at 7. But Jasper Visa will probably be 8. So, again, you're looking at either Franco Mostert or Peter Steph Toy at 7. I personally would think about starting Mostert at 5 and then bring on Lurt in the second half. But I think they'll stick with PSF the toy. So I think they'll go Khaleesi, PSF the toy, and Jasper Wiese. I think Faf comes back in. Pollard starts again. It'll be Mapimpi, Lindy, Colby. Fullback will be interesting because I imagine they'll stick with Willemse, but I wouldn't mind seeing Villaloo at all. And then bench will be Marks, Koch, Kitsoff. That's we standard. The big question is again 6-2 split. So do you go, Mostert, so whoever starts between Mostert and PSF Toy, do you have the other one there at lock, and then Quacha, and I personally would give Albert Lowe another go, or do you then go with a 5-3 and you go, for example, if PSF Toy starts, you go Mostert and Quacha Smith, for example. I think Quacha Smith has to be on the bench regardless of 5-3 or 6-2, given the impact he had in the first test. If you go with a 5-3, you then, for me, I would like to see Hendricks, Yankees, and either Villaroo or Damien Willemse, one of the two. I don't think Hendricks will be in the 23, though. I think he deserves to be, but I don't think he will be. So I think they will probably back Herschel again. So there could be Yankees, Willemse / LaRue. If not 6-2, then either Hendricks or Yankees, and then either Willemse or LaRue. That's what I think we're going to go with. I don't think we're going to see Evan Roos. I don't think we're going to see Ronald Alstad. I don't think we'll see Trevor Nyakane, which is sad because I think he was one of our best, probably our best prop last year, but I don't think he did himself very well on Saturday. We won't see Ori. We won't see Ruan Okia. We won't see Dion Fourie, I don't think. We won't see Joseph Weber. We won't see Esther Hazen. I don't think we'll see Creel. I don't think we will see Kirtley. I don't think we'll see Fassi. I don't think we'll see Galant. So, yeah, I think we'll see some of those guys again against Argentina and Durban. But I think this weekend will very much be the strongest side we can probably put up right now. I personally would like to see Hendricks ahead of Herschel. I think the way he played on Saturday, I was very impressed. I feel like he was somebody who could Saturday players who I think could justify being in 23 would be Kirtley and Hendricks very much, but I don't think that there's space for Kirtley because you're not going to drop a Pimpy, you're not going to drop Cole, you're not going to have him on the bench. I think Hendricks has done enough to put himself on the bench. A lot of people calling for Faf to be dropped. Again, Faf de Klerk is like one of the most important players within our defensive system. His line speed on defense is like unbelievably crucial there. So I think that he will start. I don't think Galant will be in the 23. I think he had an opportunity to put himself in the mix, but I don't think he endeared himself enough. I think Mapimpi might not have had the best first games, didn't have enough opportunity, but he is coming back. The games before last weekend, for example, was the end of year tour where he scored 3 tries in 3 matches. So they will go back to Mapimpi. Yeah, again, I think Orenso deserves another go, but I don't think he'll get it because there's no space for him. Estes and Creel for me will drop out and we'll have and Delendi back. So the question is just who starts at fullback, really. So, yeah, some people saying, so Darren Best says Williams needs a chance of 9, 10 minutes out of position on a fair crack. Yeah, I think we'll see him against Argentina. I felt sorry for him. Obviously, the changes, as we all know, are preparation 2023 of World Cup. Plus, before that, getting back into the Rugby Championship, having been away for a while, so they're trying to build depth. But yeah, we will see our strongest side this weekend because the next game after this is the All Blacks game in Mbombela. Matthew says Rashi's 6-year plan that started in 2018 has been highly successful so far. Wouldn't you agree? Craig Goodwin says this is a dumb topic. Thank you for your incredible contribution to the chat. We really appreciate it. Mapimpi is out of form. Should be replaced with Vikesh. Miles Lee says would love to see Ruiz on the bench. Hendricks at 2. He had a really good game. Like the idea of Franco at lock and Lord coming on off the bench. Well, I think Franco Moss is one of those players who just is better as a starter. I don't think he has the impact that other people can have if he comes off the bench. So I think he's just a better starter. I think Lord can come off the bench to really good effect, for example. But not every day Carter says Galant should start. I think he played very well. T.F. Van Berg says Apollo starts, Villiers at 15. If Alton's 10, Galant at 15. Thoughts? I I wouldn't mind Villy at 15, even if Alton starts, to be honest. Because I think that the two can work very well together. But I think him and Haaland would be a very interesting pivot duo. Glavin says, what more does Pepsi need to do to get a Bok call up? Is he good enough to be a Bok? He's very much good enough. Unfortunately, there are a tremendous amount of loose forwards in the country. I do think he will be a Springbok post 2023, though. He's a very exciting player. The Red says Alton 10, probably 12. He ran like a centre this weekend. But look, that option's always out there, and I think we did see it. And in fact, maybe we need to go back to that. You know, when we used to have 5-3 split, how often do we see Alton coming on at 10 and Pollard at 12? And it's very difficult because then you're taking off Dan Lindy. But it was a very useful, having those having playmakers at 10, 12, 15 is a very useful thing to have. So I'm all for it. I'd like to see more of it. But yeah, it also means you got left right kicking combination, for example. Your goal kicking options are much better. You got left and right goal kicking options. So I think there's a lot of pluses put to that duo. But you're never going to see Pollard starting at 12. Not when you've got Damon Delendy in the ranks. If Damon Delendy were to go down, I think it could be a genuine option to start Pollard. Obviously, Esterhuizen needs more game time so we can see what's best of him. But I don't think it would be the worst idea. Anyway, as we wrap up the show, we had a poll at the beginning. And you see, the one thing I know about this Forever Sports community is that we've got these. We've got the brains, don't we? Because 72% people have said no, Jacques Neubauer should not be sacked. The 27% out there, I can't help you. Good luck, because I really don't think it's justified. But yes, people, thank you very much for the great show. And we will see you guys tomorrow for the lunchtime show. I really enjoyed the lunchtime show. I was very apprehensive, I think is the perfect word, about doing the lunchtime show. So I wasn't sure if anyone was going to be keen. But they've actually been a lot better than the evening show. So we are going to stick to our lunchtime show. So we will have lunchtime show tomorrow, announcement reaction on Tuesday, lunchtime show Wednesday, lunchtime show Thursday, and lunchtime show on Friday. But Friday we might have a lunchtime show, but we'll see. People, please do subscribe on the way out because we are very much on the way to 14,000 subscribers. We need less than 300 people, which is really cool. But yeah, so if you're not subscribed, go and subscribe. And we will see you guys tomorrow. The lunchtime show starts at 1 o'clock. South African Standard Time. So 12 o'clock in the UK, 1 o'clock here. But yeah. Smash a like, people. We'll see you guys next time. Keep well, keep safe. And yeah.